in our 20s, we actually, so this kind of goes back to the beginning. We dated in high school, but in college, we actually went our separate ways for
10 years.
about
10
7 to
years.
10 years or so. I mean, we'd talk to each other every once in a while. We'd, try and just follow up, but it never like connected or anything. I'd come home and I'd talk to her family, and
You go visit my family.
But so I was living in Southern California. She was living in Northern California at the time, and I got this call in '96 out of the blue. I hadn't talked to her in a long time, so I got this call, and this female's voice is on the phone, and I'm like, man, I recognize it, you think, but I didn't really recognize it. So I called her about 3 or 4 different names, and then she goes, "It's Joe." Well, that's her middle name. So I was like, oh, and I knew who it was then. So for the next 3 or 4 hours, we had a, catch-up conversation. As a matter of fact, it was so good, I just ordered a pizza, and I let it get cold. And that's like, that means something special happened if I let pizza get cold.
That's what his roommate told me. His roommate came and picked me up because I went to, for work, I was going to Southern California. And we had decided to have dinner, and his roommate came and picked me up, and he goes, "Yeah, you guys were talking, and Matt let his pizza get cold, so I knew I needed to come pick you up." So it was quite humorous. But
Yeah. So that led us to reconnecting. So
we had made some big talks too of what we wanted in our lives and what we expected. And it was, we both said we wanted to have a family, raise it in the church, and we wanted them to, participate and know our faith and grow.
the timing of it at that time was we were basically having a reversion back to the faith. I've been living singly, and I didn't reject the church. I was just not in a place where I felt like I could go, as a good believing person.
We didn't feel worthy.
She had feel worthy, and she had her issues. And then I probably a month or so before she called, I prayed to God. I was like, "You're in control. I'm not. Whatever you want for me, I'll do. If you want me to be single, I'll be single and keep trying." And then, lo and behold, I get this call.
And the interesting part of this call was the fact that, going back in history too, for me, it's like Maxwell is not Matthew's child. And I had been in a relationship where the man was divorced, and going through it, because at the time I thought I was doing things right, and I wasn't. I was living in sin, and I wanted to be back in the church. And I just remember I went to the Monsignor in St. Helena, and I said, "This isn't, I'm struggling. I thought I was doing things right, and I'm not." And I said, "How can I get back in the church?" And, after talking to him and meeting with him, I realized I had been living in adultery because of his divorce. I was never married, and that was difficult. So it's like I went to confession, and I started getting back into the church. And I now had Maxwell with me. So when I talked to Matthew, I said, I have a son, Max. And Matthew was adopted at birth, so he understood, having a child. And so when he and I first started talking and stuff, he got to meet Max, and he and Maxwell hit it off so well. I was amazed because it wasn't just me at that point. It was about Max too. So Max loved him. So he used to come up, and he would see Max and I, and Max would lay on his chest and take a nap. So it was like, okay. And then when we had Brenna, Maxwell used to just sit and kiss his sister. He loves being a brother, so it's been a fulfillment in that regard.
Yeah, he's always been my son, so never like a separation, or a label. He's just, my kid. So, yeah. And they're all, he's their brother. So that's, there's no designation. It's just he's their brother. So, and my son. So.
Yeah. So getting through that was, feeling God's forgiveness, because we went through this difficult time, and then having our children all be very close is, very much a prayer answered.
And that's, it's divine mercy, God's mercy, His grace, all of it. What we learned from the church, it was just the prodigal. He's calling us back and calling us home. And He, for her and I, did it through the sacrament of marriage. There's other ways, but that was our way. And it was, it's just a beautiful thing. I mean, and when we came together and we started, having children, and it's like we wanted to share that faith with them. It was to introduce it early, and prayers and the jewels in the church that they give us, all the things to help us navigate this life. And it wasn't, easy, like it never is, but we tried to teach them to use the tools available that God gave us, and introduce that to them, and form their intellect, I guess. It was important for us to expose them to that and live it.
Yeah.